This animal is so weird.
Imagine if a butterfly could get scared, wrap itself back in a cocoon, and turn back into a caterpillar. Imagine if an 80-year-old human could snap their fingers, dissolve their wrinkles, and wake up as a crying infant. This sounds like magic. But for Turritopsis dohrnii, the immortal jellyfish, it is a biological reality. And it's not alone. In our ponds, there is a creature called the Hydra. You can cut it in half, you can put it in a blender, and it won't die. It will just regenerate into 2 new bodies. While every other living thing on Earth is destined to rot, these 2 animals have hacked the code of life. They haven't just learned to survive, they have physically forgotten how to die. But this ability comes with a terrifying question, one that haunts biologists and philosophers alike. If you live forever, are you still you? Or are you just a copy of a copy, stuck in an endless loop? Let's start with the most famous glitch in the Matrix, Turritopsis dohrnii. To the naked eye, it looks insignificant. It is a tiny, translucent bell, barely 4.5 millimeters wide. You have probably swum right past them in the ocean without noticing. But inside their cells, they are defying the fundamental arrow of time. Biology works on a strict timeline. It is a one-way street. An organism is born, it develops specialized cells, heart, skin, brain, it reproduces, it ages, and it dies. This is called senescence. It is the price we pay for existing. The immortal jellyfish has found a loophole. It treats the timeline like a slider on a video player.
What the hell are you talking about?
Here is how it happens. Usually, a jellyfish starts as a polyp, a stalk on the sea floor, buds off into a floating medusa, the adult, lays eggs, and dies. But if Turritopsis gets stressed, if it is starving or injured, or the water temperature spikes, it rejects death. It drops to the ocean floor. It begins to dissolve its own body. It absorbs its tentacles. It melts its own structure into a shapeless blob of tissue. To a human observer, it looks like it's decomposing, but it isn't. Inside that blob, a process called transdifferentiation is kicking in. This is the biological equivalent of alchemy. In you and me, a muscle cell is a muscle cell forever. It cannot change jobs. But in this jellyfish, the cells forget who they are. Muscle cells transform into nerve cells. Nerve cells transform into skin cells. They revert back to their factory settings. Within days, the blob doesn't die. It sprouts roots. It becomes a polyp again. It has physically turned back into a child. It can then grow up, become an adult again, get stressed, and revert again. It is the only animal in the known universe that can hit Control-Z on its own existence. And here is the scary part. They are taking over. Because they are so small and can survive almost anything by reverting to a polyp, they have hitched rides in the ballast water of cargo ships. They have silently spread from the Caribbean to Japan, to Italy, to Panama. They are essentially cloning themselves across the world. An invisible, immortal army that is slowly conquering the oceans while we aren't looking. But resetting the clock is drastic. It requires you to destroy your adult body. There is another creature that has achieved immortality without needing to destroy itself. It doesn't time travel. It just refuses to break. Enter the Hydra. Named after the Greek monster that grew 2 heads when one was cut off, this real-life version is even stranger. It is a simple freshwater tube with a mouth and tentacles. It looks primitive, but it is a biological miracle. In humans, our cells have a limit. It's called the Hayflick limit. Your cells can only divide about 50 times before they become corrupted and stop. That is why we get frail. That is why organs fail. We run out of fresh cells. The Hydra has no limit. The Hydra is made almost entirely of stem cells, the master key cells that can turn into anything. Because of this, the Hydra is constantly replacing every single brick in its body. If you look at a Hydra today and look at it again in 20 days, not a single cell is the same. It is a completely new animal. It is the ship of Theseus made of flesh. Scientists have kept them in aquariums for decades to measure their aging curve. For humans, the chance of dying goes up every year you live. For the Hydra, the mortality curve is flat. A 100-year-old Hydra is biologically identical to a 1-day-old Hydra. It does not weaken. It does not slow down. Unless a predator eats it, it will theoretically live forever. And speaking of predators, do not let their size fool you. This is not a peaceful animal. It is a meat grinder. Its tentacles are lined with nematocysts, pressurized capsules loaded with neurotoxins. When a water flea touches a tentacle, the capsule fires a microscopic harpoon. This harpoon accelerates at 40,000 Gs. That is fast enough to punch through the armor of insects. It is one of the fastest movements in the animal kingdom. So we have a creature that shoots poison harpoons, never gets old, and can survive a blender. In famous experiments, scientists have cut hydras into pieces, or even dissociated their cells into a soup. If you leave that soup alone, the cells will find each other. They will reorganize. They will build a new hydra. You cannot kill it with violence. You can only kill it with starvation or fire. But the hydra and the jellyfish are simple creatures. They don't have real brains. So you might be thinking, sure, a blob can be immortal, but a complex animal with a brain can't do that. Well, there is one animal that suggests otherwise, and it brings us to the most disturbing experiment in the history of memory. Meet the Planarian Flatworm. This is a step up from the hydra. It has a nervous system. It has 2 eye spots that look like googly eyes. It has a brain. Like the hydra, it is practically immortal. You can cut it into 279 pieces, and it will grow into 279 new worms. If you cut off its head, the tail will grow a new head. If you cut off the tail, the head grows a new tail. But scientists wanted to know, what happens to the mind? If you cut off the head, does the new brain start blank? In a study at Tufts University, researchers took a flatworm and trained it. They put food in a specific rough-textured area of a petri dish. The worm learned, rough surface equals food. It remembered this. Then, the scientists cut off the worm's head. They threw the brain away. They waited for the tail to grow a brand new brain. Then, they put the regenerated worm back in the dish. The worm immediately went to the rough surface for food. It remembered. How? The brain was gone. The neurons that held the memory were in the trash. This suggests that memories might not just be stored in the brain. They might be stored in the body's electrical grid or encoded in the DNA of the cells themselves. This implies that for these immortal creatures, death is just a temporary inconvenience. You can destroy the brain, destroy the body, and the self somehow persists. So here is the billion-dollar question. If nature has the technology for immortality, if jellyfish can revert age, and hydras can regenerate, and worms can regrow brains, why can't we? Why are humans, dogs, and cats destined to rot? The answer is terrifyingly simple. It's the cancer trap. The machinery required for immortality is dangerous. To be immortal, your cells need to be able to divide forever. They need to be aggressive. They need to ignore the command to stop. In a complex body like a human, cells that divide forever and ignore commands has a name. We call it cancer. We age specifically to prevent cancer. Our cells have safety locks, telomeres, that force them to stop dividing after a while, so they don't grow out of control. We accept death as the price for not dissolving into tumors. The hydra and the jellyfish are simple enough that they don't worry about this. If a hydra gets a weird cell, it just pushes it off its body. But we are too complex. Our complexity is our cage. This leads us to the final, haunting realization. We tend to view death as a failure, a disease to be cured. But looking at the jellyfish and the hydra, it seems that death is actually a transaction. Nature offered life a choice. Option A, you can be immortal. You can live forever, regenerate endlessly, and never die. But you must remain simple. You cannot have a complex mind, deep emotions, or a singular identity. You must be a machine. Option B, you can have a soul. You can love. You can build civilizations. You can contemplate the stars. But to pay for that complexity, you have to die. The immortal jellyfish made its choice. It chose forever. But every time it reverts to a polyp, dissolving its adult body into goo, we have to ask, did the jellyfish survive? Or did it commit suicide to create a clone? If you lived forever by constantly erasing your brain and rebuilding it, would that still be you? Or is death the only thing that gives you any meaning at all? Perhaps the butterfly knows something the caterpillar doesn't.